Everybody is finding a reason for their life, bringing out the gifts from deep inside. Now I've found my voice.
Hello, a very, very warm welcome to you, Michael. I'm very pleased that you are part of my online summit. Hello.
Hello, thank you. I am honored that you've invited me to be here in this summit.
Thank you so much. At first, I would like to ask you, maybe you'd like to introduce yourself. So, which roles you play in the world? Who are you?
Well, music is a central part of my life, and particularly music which is of the soul and connects what I think of as connecting back home through the heart, home, the spiritual home inside, and to what I've come to call the great song. The great song being the song in me, but in everyone and in all of life. And this theme of the great song, it reoccurs again and again in all the different ways that I share what I do, whether it's in the music, in the recordings, in the seminars, in the films, even in the photography. The photography, of course, has to do with light and has to do with nature. And in the light itself is the great song expressed on a different vibration. So to me, beauty is a expression of this great song in its myriad ways.
So the summit is called Being You. Where is the connection between the great song, how you call it, and being you? Is it the same, or is there a difference, or what do you think about it?
Beautiful question. For me, we're talking about boundaries between self and something bigger than self. That's kind of how I take that question. And so there's the self, and here we have also the self concept, the ego, I, personality self, and then we have the great self, or the bigger self, the deeper self. And I would say a correlation is we have the songs of our life, the personal songs. And then we have this great song that holds it all, that's underneath everything, and that's loving us and guiding us and providing us with inspiration throughout our life. And so when you ask about you, being you versus, or being you and this great song, how do they fit together? I would say that when I am in my sense of separate self, or my sense of the identity of Michael, that then this, and that's being me as Michael, that the great song is what it enfolds me, it embraces Michael as an honoring of this individual spark that is part of something bigger, that is part of a greater light or flame, or whatever you want to call it, that it's part of this greater light that's holding all of us. And each one of us has their individual personality, and then we're surrounded by, whether we call it the great song or something else, something that holds us, and how I feel it intimately knows us. It knows us, and whatever we've done and whatever we haven't done, and all the judgments we have and the critiques we have about ourselves, this bigger self and this greater song sees through it all sees it all and just honors the essence of who we are and our whole journey that we made to get here where we are, and is filled with mercy and compassion for this expression that has our name attached to it. You know, this person, this being, this you-ness that we carry throughout our life. And that's how I would respond to your question.
The great song, how you come to the great song, how it happens that you say, I call it the great song, which or who embraces us, how it comes.
Well, music has been a stream throughout my life, a river that's running. And it was, though I played clarinet in orchestra for many years in elementary school as a child, it was not until I picked up the guitar when I was about 13 that suddenly my mouth was open without a clarinet in it and I could sing. And when I had the guitar in my hands and could sing, it was as if a signal went off inside of me. It was as if all the music I'd done before almost it's like it was bringing me to that point. And with the guitar and with the voice open, I first began singing the songs of the time, which were the great songs of the 60s. I mean, it was late 60s, and we're talking about, you know, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Simon and Garfunkel, and you name it. It was so many groups were singing, and individual artists were singing and writing tremendous songs at that time. I particularly like the harmony vocal groups that just came out with these great harmony vocals. And so I was singing these people's songs, and then very quickly I began writing my own songs. It was like just, I think a few months after picking up the guitar, I began writing songs. And these songs that I was writing, I would say it was the beginning of the call of the great song to me in these songs I was writing, because they were about reincarnation. They were about going home. They were about a sense of a life that is not limited to this one lifetime. And the songs just kept coming. I wasn't on any particular formal spiritual path at the time. It was more just the music in me was guiding me. And I was in Washington, D.C., which is the East Coast of America, or of the United States. And I had this very strong passion, this pull to go to the West Coast, to go to California. And it was as if the song was calling me west and calling me out there. And I didn't know why or what, but I just knew that I had a mission, or it was a calling to go west. And I discovered a school that was out on the West Coast, very experimental, very different and interesting. And I wrote to them, and they agreed to have me come there as a guitar teacher for their school. So I went to this school for my senior year in high school, and there I was in California, and playing guitar in groups and studying yoga, and it was all coming together. And as the great song inside of me had called me to the West Coast, and it continued in different forms and ways over the years. I don't need to go into details unless the story comes up in our talking, but in California, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii, I lived for I think 40 years I was there before moving to Switzerland 12 years ago. And the whole time, the great song has really been this. The form changes, but the essence doesn't waver. It stays. a very profound point for me was, well, I'll come back to one story, but a profound point for me was being in hospice for some years. This was back in 1991, 2, 3, and I was their music person. And I would sit with people as they were dying and their families and let songs come through spontaneously, just be born in the moment, and record these songs. At that time, it was on cassette tapes, and give them these cassettes of these songs that were born from this encounter. And these were songs that were, this person here has only days, weeks, or months left in this form on the earth. And I felt so honored and like in the presence of this great silence that was there, and a deep mystery that was there of what is it. I didn't have so much a concept of I know where they're going. It wasn't like that at all. It was more of like, we're in this mystery together, and you get to go before us. You know, you're going on your journey, and who knows where. But I let a song come through that was a comforting, guiding song. It was a song kind of a welcoming, often, of a welcoming home, or a kind of, you know, your wings are spreading, and you're letting go of your cares and your worries, and the old is falling away, and something new is being born. And in all of that, it was a deepening of my sense of the great song that was going on before we came into this world. It goes on after we leave this world, and so logically, it's going on now. Even though we don't hear it here in this world often. I mean, we hear glimpses of it as it comes through expressions, as the birds sing, as the wind blows, as the ocean roars, and as the thunder rumbles. And as music unfolds, we hear a glimpse of it, but it's only a glimpse. But the great song that comes before and after is beyond our limited senses. It's touching the deep vibration of the soul that's unburdened or unpackaged. The envelope of the body is not in the way.
So,
or I better said, the envelope of the senses, the five senses, as beautiful as they are, as wonderful as they are, they're limited in their capacity to pick up, to hear the great song as it is. But for the one who's on their journey out of this world, they are hearing that song. And often you will hear stories of someone who dies and comes back, you know, who has a so-called near-death experience. They come back and they speak about music. They speak sometimes about the most beautiful music they've ever heard. And that to me is a sign. People always are looking, what is a sign for life after death? Is it real? Is it not? To me, that speaks to me as the sign, for me, of this music that's going on, and that we are all welcome in it when we come into it. And we are part of it. And while we are here, it's inside of us. We have a link. Each one of us has a link. And what I believe, and I have kind of discovered in my life and my journey, is that a way to hear that better while we are here, even though our senses are limited. If our fears begin falling away, if we lessen our fears and lessen our judgment of ourselves, our critique, and we begin returning to that creative innocence that we were living in as a child, and we let the song come through us freely and sing about what we're feeling, what is true for us, what's real for us, what are we aware of in this moment, and not worry about what it sounds like, and not worry about perfection and any of those musical terms. but we're doing it from the soul expressing itself. That is actually it gives us a kind of, by expressing it out, it shows us a pathway back in, back to that innocent center where the great song is singing. Maybe we could say that we never actually are singing the great song here, or we can say we're always singing the great song. I mean, you can go either way. Either it's never or it's always. But somehow when we open to the memory of our original innocence and to the lived sense, I mean, this conference is about being us. Who are we really? When we open to that sense of who we really are, that the great song is singing in there. And as we lessen our fears of expressing this song, we are simultaneously releasing ourselves from the fear of leaving this world. One of the great Native American elders spoke about, find your noble death song and sing it before you cross the great divide. Mm. And when you sing that song, you go home with just courage in your heart and happiness and freedom and at peace. And to me, that's such a touching reminder. It's not morbid at all to sing a death song. It's not about a sad song. It's actually it's the song of our life and our freedom and our happiness. And we can sing that song by speaking. We can sing that song by drawing a picture. We can sing that song by loving. Singing the song is sometimes a metaphor for living our life truly and from the heart.
So beautiful that you took me with you on the journey now. In the meantime, when you talk, I just can feel what you are talking about, because I also was part of your group not even 1 week ago, I think. And there I really can experience what you mean by expressing the great song through me, through each of us who was there. So is it like this, that we are all expression of that great song?
The question that you ask now, are we all an expression of the great song? I have my own sense about that, but what Doris, my wife, and I did with that question is we went around the world for several years and asked people that question. We asked it, we said, what is the great song for you? Or is the great song in your culture or your religion or your tradition? And we were amazed and very deeply touched by the responses that came. And we filmed them. So we filmed these people's responses. Sometimes they expressed it in music and sometimes in words. And their responses wove together this film that we've released last year, 2016, called In Search of the Great Song. Mm-hmm. And the interviews began in 2009, so it's been going for some time. That was, eight years ago. But one of the first interviews we had, Doris had said to me, we really need to interview someone whose music touches us very deeply, at the deepest level. And so we both looked at each other and knew that who that was. It's Morten Lauridsen. He's an American composer. He's a Danish ancestry, but he lives in America. And he's considered one of the greatest living choral composers, a specialty of choral music in America. And he won the National Medal of the Arts. And has been honored again and again. In fact, right now, as we speak, this weekend, he is being honored at the Disney Hall in Los Angeles with thousands of people and a huge choir singing his greatest work, which is called Lux Eterna, the Latin for light eternal. Mm. And it was 20 years ago that it was composed. So this is the anniversary of that. And the interview with Morten Lauridsen was so powerful, a very short interview, but it was so powerful. And the music, of course, is so beautiful that it ended up becoming a feature-length documentary itself. So, interestingly enough, our journey for the great song to discover what it is, the first release we made as a film through Song Without Borders, which is our film agency that we created, film and music. The first film was Shining Night, a portrait of the composer Morten Lauridsen. And it just opened up so many doors because choral groups all over the world sing his music. And they were fascinated to discover his story behind the music. So there were screenings all over the world, and often choirs would host the film and sing his music before or after the film. And it won all these awards at film festivals. And he was so touched by it and has continued to support the project we're on, including In Search of the Great Song, the second film, which he's in there. He has a beautiful interview with new material that's not in the original film. So we are so blessed to have met him along with other people whose music is very deep. But just to speak of Lauridsen, to be in friendship and close proximity with someone whose music not only touches us, but is considered for many, many people around the world some of the deepest music that brings them close to heaven or close to spirit. It helps heal them. It helps in removing the feeling of being separate or lonely. This music is fabulous. And so for Doris and I to be with Morten Lauridsen and with that film, and now this new film, In Search of the Great Song, has been a great honor for us. And a continuing of this journey of being connected to the great song in us and inviting others to discover what the great song is for them.
When you speak about Morten Lauridsen and you say you and Doris, you chose him as a first speaker. What is it exactly? What touches you so deeply with him?
Well, originally it was his music that was touching us, and it's born of classical Renaissance influences. He draws from the Renaissance harmonic family, the harmonics, but he brings it into modern harmonies. And so that's what he did, which kind of set a tone for choral music 20 years ago that now almost, I won't say all, but many, many of the modern choral composers look to his music as a inspiration for the harmonies that are occurring in many of the musics that are being born now. So it goes back to these the old harmonies that often touch us so deeply from the Renaissance and the Baroque, and brings them into modern harmonies, which I would say also draw from even jazz fields and just modern classical music. He's also someone who loves melody, and a lot of modern music has gone away from melody towards more atonal, chromatic sound envelopes. And this melody is what touches so deeply for me and for many, to hear those melodies. So that's the first thing that touched him. And then to meet him and hear him speak was the second thing. Because he's someone who speaks just what he wants to say. No second take is needed in filming. It's, he just says it. And he doesn't say too many words. He sums it up and he delivers it. So to have him as a subject for a film was not only an honor, but it was a great blessing as a untrained filmmaker. This was all new for us. To have him as a subject made it so easy, because the music track was there, this beautiful music, choirs that would sing it, and then he would speak it. Not only that, he lives part-time on an island without any electricity. It's a little island off the coast of Seattle. And so to film him on this island by the sea and in the woods created a visual, natural backdrop to the whole film that ties it all together. So in a sense, it was very easy. It took time and it took energy, but it was very easy to weave this together and have something that was harmonic and touching.
I can really feel. I saw the film already, and it's very, very beautiful. And some films, they really open a space for the viewers. And both of your films are open that space. And as a viewer, you get in touch with the great song. So for me, it was like this. So I get in touch not with something outside of me. I got in touch with something inside.
Well, that was, thank you, Birgit, for saying that, because that was our intention. That was our
So it worked.
hope. It worked. Well, if it works with one, then maybe it's working with others too. So we're just very happy it worked with you. And it was, for Doris and I, the importance was that the film is a transmission. Not so much about entertainment, but a transmission of an energy that allows the viewer to, as you said, to feel a contact to their own essence as they're viewing it. And I suppose, that's really any filmmaker wants to transmit something. So that's not unusual. But that was certainly our intention in doing that.
I'm not sure if all the filmmakers have that intention, but with your films, I think it didn't only work on me. I don't say that my feeling is that it's general, or you can use it general, but many people talk to me about your film, that they were really deeply touched. And it's not only because of your films, it shows also a spirit of you and your mission here in the world. So you're also not an entertainer for me. You really also want to do something with your work to people are getting more connected to themselves in their deepness. So for me, there's not that big difference. You're as a filmmaker, you're not an entertainer, and as an intuitive musician, you're also not an entertainer. So what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, there was a long time when healing was an important word and concept for me, that really the music was healing music. And people would ask me, well, what are you healing? What is it? And my response would be, it's healing the belief in separation. Healing the heart. Not so much the physical, but that sense of loneliness, of separateness, of isolation. And not only isolation from other people, but also isolation from our deeper self, from the great song, from spirit, from the universe, from this ongoing life, this idea that the great song is calling us always behind the scenes. Mm. And so in that sense, I would say that using that definition of healing, that's what the purpose of my music is. It is that. And to help people also reconnect to their expression as well of their voice and their song, their creative expression. And the seminar that you attended the other day is called Song Sanctuary. And whether it's a 1-day, a 2-day, or a multiple-day retreat, the Song Sanctuary's purpose is to give a space for people to relax and return home to the great song within them. And that's what its intention is, and that's what it seems to provide in different ways for different people. And the other way I help convey this for people is through something I call song portraits. It's what when I talked about my time in hospice and being with people as they're dying, and spontaneous songs would come through. That same way of letting songs come through spontaneously, which is what the little children are doing. They're spontaneous songs. But what I do with the guitar, I combine the guitar with words, with a message in song for the individual. And I do this in ceremony, in groups, called the honoring ceremony. And I also do that with individuals, whether like an hour-long session done online or by phone or in person. And this is something I've been doing for a long time, because as soon as it happened the first time, I knew this is one of the reasons I am here, or one of the ways I have to share the mission that I'm on, which is the mission is not saving the world. The mission is saving me, is coming home to me, is coming home to the great song in me. And so that is expressed outwardly by inviting other people to find the great song in them. And when I create spontaneously a song for somebody, in fact, a song that I had for you is online, right? It's available there. Mm-hmm. But when that happens, it's always a gift from me, because the songs are all for me. But then the song is for someone else. And not only is it for one person, but the song, as personal as it can be in its purpose, it can transcend that individual purpose and serve others as well, those who resonate with the theme of the one who's asking for the song. So I'm going to tell a story that fits with this, I think, and that is, it's about my father. And I've told this story in the seminars often, because it's a personal story for me, and it also somehow resonates with people sometimes who've had parents who've sometimes been critical of them for some reason. Well, the story here begins with something the opposite. My father was so supportive of me as a teenager in the guitar study, and getting the best teacher and practicing the guitar, and really going for something that was my love, my passion. And then I continued and would record albums of my music. But he wasn't so happy with that, because he liked the guitar, but he didn't like my singing. And he said, your guitar playing is good, but your singing isn't so good. And so maybe stick with just guitar. Well, I couldn't do that. I had to sing. So I kept singing and making songs. and bringing these albums to my father. And every time he'd say, no, this isn't it. Stop with the spiritual music. It's not the way. Just write normal songs and more guitar. I couldn't help it. I just kept writing these spiritual songs and singing them. Well, it went like that for many years, and finally I get the call that my father is dying. And I go to him. I take out my guitar and I play, and he likes that. And then I begin singing. I sing a song about his life. And he begins crying, and he says, Michael, now I know what you've been doing with your voice all your life. Mm. And this is important because he never cried before. I'd never seen him cry. So this was very special. He said, Michael, now I know what you've been doing all your life with your voice. You've been loving people with your voice. Mm. And this was very touching for me, having had this whole history with him of feeling he didn't appreciate my voice. And what I realized when he said that is that what I was doing was actually loving me. I was loving myself with my voice first. And in that space of loving myself, if someone hears that song, they may feel loving energy, and they can feel it towards them because it's a loving energy for me. Mm. You'll feel the loving space. Mm. So it made total sense, and I understood what he said, and it all became clear that this whole life, when he kept encouraging me to play guitar and not sing, it wasn't because he didn't love me or love my voice. It's that he wanted me to be successful. He wanted me to also be financially successful, and he felt that I could do better and make more money if I focused on guitar. And he was probably right. But I had a mission. I had my life to live, and it had to do with song and singing and healing song and the great song and inviting other people who criticize their voices to let them out and to love themselves. So I'm simply offering to others what I've given myself, which is to love my voice regardless of how it sounds, and let it be, and give it room to breathe and to express. And that's what we do in the seminar that you experienced. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do in these song portraits. And that's what the films are about, really, is like giving space and room to love our creative spirit and to give it room to breathe and to find a voice, find our voice, our unique voice, and bring it through, bring it forth. And I love what Morton Lauridsen says in his interview in The Great Song. He's in the Search of the Great Song. He says, find your voice, whether it's painting or dance or sculpture or singing. Find your voice and pour your energy into it and develop your craft and your technique. Do everything you can to bring it forth. And listen to other voices and learn, but stay with your path and leave something for others. You know, if you can, leave a mark that goes beyond you. As he says, it stands the test of time, which is a beautiful way to say it. And every time I hear him say that, it just so deeply touches me. To leave something behind, it stands the test of time. Because what I always remind people is that there's the natural voice that we all have. It's in everyone. Every child has this natural voice, and they are singing from that place. And then there's the trained voice. There's the performance voice. And that's the one actually that Morton Lauridsen speaks of there. He says, technique, craft, get better and better and better at it and leave something behind. That's the trained voice, or the performance. And it's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. But not to forget this natural creative spark that's in us. It's in everyone. And even if we're going for that performance in that trained place, it's the natural part in us that supports us. It's the place in us that loves us and loves our expression. I know some people feel they have to be so hard on themselves in order to get better. You know, they have to really be so. Its discipline is not always easy. The artistic discipline is not always easy, but to be loving ourselves as we are engaged in an artistic discipline, I think that's, in a way, it reminds me that people who work so hard all their life in order to retire, I'm not sure of the German word for retire, but it's at the end of the work life, the time. And there's so many people who work sometimes a job they don't like, but they're working for the retirement so that they can finally enjoy life. But so often they find after a whole life lived of something they don't love, that it's not what they thought. They're not, they don't have the energy so much sometimes upon that retirement. I'm seeing that flashing too on that, like, I don't know what that is. Maybe the light is signaling us that our time is almost done. The great light is shimmering. But what I was going to say is, tying that together, is that if we focus on a trained artistic expression and the discipline of that to the exclusion of our natural voice and our love for our creative self, we can get very good. We can get very technically good, but we may find we lose the connection to the joy of the music or the art that was the original inspiration for it. I've met some artists who said that. In fact, they sometimes come to my seminar as a way of reconnecting back. Because it is about reconnecting back to that original love. The original love we have for who we are and for our expression. So it is about being us.
This was also my experience in your workshop, that it's not so much about singing, even when we are using the voice, even when we are singing, but it has really something to do with to give myself space to feel what is here by now and to allow to express what wants to be expressed by now. So it was like it was so simple on one side, like basic, but it was such it was so relaxing for my whole system to get connected with what is here by now, and I don't have to produce something. I think for many people it's maybe also important to know that on your workshops you don't have to produce something, or you don't have to be perfect on your voice. It has something, it is more like a meditation to get into contact with myself, and it was really a very deep and beautiful experience. So, thank you, Michael.
Well, Birgit, thank you for saying that. It's a beautiful what you just said is exactly what the intention is in what we do in these seminars, whether it's a day or 2 days or 5 days or 6 days. We've been holding longer programs in monasteries in Italy and now in Germany as well, and soon in Finland as well, or retreat centers, monasteries, places that are just beautiful and spacious and filled with light and spirit. But it's exactly what you said. There's no pressure to have to do anything. Mm-hmm. It's more of, if we take away that pressure, or when that pressure softens, as I sometimes use the analogy, when we let the hunter relax, the hunter that's criticizing, the hunter that's always looking for what's wrong what in an expression, what is wrong? That's not sounding right. When that hunter, which we all know, we all have the hunter, when the hunter gets quiet or can focus their activity somewhere else for the moment. I'm not saying the hunter isn't useful at times, but for the purpose of what we do in the seminar, the hunter isn't needed. It's more about agreeing for ourselves and for the others, this is a time and space to let go of this self-critic that we're so used to, and critic of others, and let something emerge that wants to.
And this is so deeply nourishing, to have space without that hunter. How you speak about that hunter, yeah. That it is really a deep experience, and you cannot make it. It's just like, how should I explain it? You, as a person, as Michael, opens that space for the group. And in that group, we all felt that you had already your own experience in life, as you say by now, with your father, in the hospice, in all your life traveling, yeah? And it's not like I have to be a teacher in that way. It is like, I'm just here for you, and give yourself space to just be you. And nourishing is the word that comes to my mind. The work, what you're doing is nourishing on all the levels. It doesn't matter if you're making a workshop or a song portrait, or if you're a photographer, or if you're a filmmaker. It's all the expression of that great song, as you say.
Well, it's interesting when you bring up photography. I realize that when I'm, particularly landscape photography, which I love, being in nature and just being with the beauty and getting quiet, so it's a kind of a meditation, that the actual experience is the same thing with loving my voice or loving myself there and letting the music express. There, it's loving myself that I love this beauty and letting the picture take itself. Once I have all the technique there and all the camera and all that, but it's just letting it happen from the space of loving myself and loving the light that I see. So really that's a common theme, I think, for my life. And thank you for pointing that out.
So thankful for you and your work and what you express in the world. So you got your last words in this interview. So is there something what you want to join with our audience? I know.
So if this was happening, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or, we could be having the same conversation in a sense at another time. But there's something about the time we're in now that is, and I believe you've been seeing this, it's calling more and more people to come home to themselves, to who they are. It's increasing the importance, the essential call of the self and the being wanting to love itself, and then, of course, loving others through that. I mean, it's not when I talk about loving self, it's not an isolating and removing ourselves from the world. It's actually only through that then the heart opens and the compassion opens to others. and we begin seeing that we're not so separate as we thought.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I loved about the great song filming and traveling the world with Doris is that we saw that everyone we asked the question to had some kind of response. And we realized that this was an agreement field, that people were agreeing that there is a great song. The great song exists. Scientists, people from all different religions, all the artists and music, that to have something that is agreed upon, not what it is, but that it exists. Mm-hmm. And in other words, we weren't talking about God, which always can bring up all kinds of responses, and those who believe or don't believe. We are finding that nobody was having a hard time with talking about the great song. Mm-hmm. The great song was somehow, it brought a kind of calmness and kindness. People who don't have anything to do with spirituality, they could still relate to the great song. And I feel that we're in a time now when it's the advent of the remembering of the great song. It doesn't have to be those words, but in whatever words it is, it's happening. And that, I believe that this summit that you are convening is part of that, there's the light flashing again. Okay, there we go. It's
like you're saying something important.
Yeah, right. The summit is an example of this essential call, is this strengthening in this time. And the great song is another, avenue of remembrance of that. And there are so many. And I believe each person who you have, that you interview in this summit, will be delivering a different facet of the jewel, of this calling that's happening right now. And they will share their experience in their life of examples of how it's happening in their life and with the people they're meeting. So it's extraordinary and perfectly ordinary. It is the time we're living in, and it's the time for this to happen. And I thank you for doing your part, Birgit, in calling us forth to share that which is important to us, meaningful to us, true for us, and lights up the screen for us.
Yeah, it is so joyful with you, and you're speaking so right to my heart, and I'm for sure you're speaking to the hearts of the audience, because we can hear you. And thank you so much to put your color to the world, and your tone to the world. So thank you very much, Michael, to join that summit. And I'm very honored and touched. Thank you for being such a contribution to my life and the life of so many people.
Well, may the good that's in you and the good that's in me continue to nourish us and others throughout our lives. Namaste. Thank you so much.
Namaste. Thank you.
Now that I found my voice, I know that there's no choice. It simply wants to share with